Hey everyone, welcome to Locked On Lakers for Tuesday. Brian Kamenetsky, Andy Kamenetsky. Jeanie Buss says LeBron James will have his number retired when his career is over. Will he also get a statue? That's next.
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks to everyone for making Locked On Lakers your first listen of every day, Monday through Friday, no matter how or where you get your podcast. It's always free. It's never going to be behind a paywall. And Locked On Lakers on YouTube. Andy, this happened while I was on vacation. I believe zipped past the 20,000 subscriber barrier. So cool to see that. We thank all of you guys so much for supporting the channel. It has grown faster than we possibly could have imagined, and we both have vivid imaginations, but we do what we do. So thanks to everybody for supporting the channel. Please continue to leave us questions and comments. They grow even more valuable during the off season. Love answering mailbags and stuff like that. We're going to get into some of the reaction from your episode on Monday, Andy, that you did a fantastic scouting report on Cam Reddish. If you haven't seen it, please go back and watch Monday's show. It is an excellent, not just informationally, but I love going back and looking at that just to get those three perspectives. All three teams, Andy, you talked to guys who covered Cam Reddish from the three stops before he got to LA. So it's a really cool way to do a scouting report. So
thanks.
I like that a lot.
Yeah, I appreciate that a lot. And just echoing what Brian said, the 20,000 subscriber milestone is really awesome, very flattering. So thank you.
All right. So we will get to the Reddish reaction because I think it's the way he was talked about in those shows was interesting from so many different levels. And relevant, obviously, to the Lakers season this year. We'll get to that before we're done here. Do want to let you know that this episode of Locked On Lakers is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, the official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn today to get started. This was, I think, both an interesting, not terribly surprising, but interesting comment from Jeanie Buss in an interview with Sportskeeda. She was talking about LeBron James and his status and sort of post-retirement honoraries with the Lakers, specifically having his jersey retired. Jeanie said, the standard for having your jersey retired as a Laker is when a player is inducted into the Hall of Fame. I have absolutely no doubt that LeBron will make it into the Basketball Hall of Fame. When he does so, then we will retire his jersey. Knowing that he will make it into the Basketball Hall of Fame, he will have his jersey retired, no doubt about it. Let's start with that because jersey retirement always leads to the statue question. Are you as confident as Jeanie Buss, Andy, that LeBron will make the Hall of Fame?
Well, I mean, that's why ultimately you want somebody like Jeanie Buss, the head of the snake of this organization, the ultimate shot caller, somebody who's not afraid to make decisive statements, and she doesn't care what anybody thinks.
No.
Like, you know what? Maybe it's controversial, maybe it isn't, but Jeanie feels like the all-time leading scorer in NBA history, four-time champion, is going to end up in the Hall of Fame, and that's her stance. Damn it, she's not backing down.
I respect her. It's a hot take.
And by the way, I tend to think she's right.
I do think she's correct. It'll be interesting. One of the things I was always thinking about with this too, and I know where fans' minds go with this sort of thing, but like, do you need to wait with LeBron? Do you need to do that? Is it 5 years in the NBA? Like, I think, do you got to do that with LeBron? Like, can you have the ceremony the following year?
Look, the way I feel about this, and I hate to get, somber, but like what happened with Kobe, to me is a reminder that do this stuff as quickly as possible. Like if you know frankly, the standard should just be after somebody says they're retired and, the rare person that Hall of Famer that retires, then unretires, worry about it later. At the end of the day, if you're active in the Hall of Fame,
pull it down.
I mean, look, if you're active and in the Hall of Fame, honestly, I don't care. But I just feel like, something like what happened with Kobe, which obviously was such an unexpected tragedy and turn of events, and something that would have meant a lot to Kobe, to be there for that Hall of Fame induction. Thankfully he was, there
for the jersey retirement.
Yes.
Right. I know what you mean. And I agree. And like I said, that's why I meant, I knew where fans, especially with Lakers fans, where your mind goes. There are two things that come up with this, kind of the fun debate. There's the statue question. There's also the number question, because he is going back to 23 for this year.
Even before that, there's the question of LeBron having the jersey retired in the first place, beyond the idea that he's a Hall of Famer.
Well, right, and that was sort of one of the other things. It's kind of a legacy question. Like, LeBron James is one of those guys that, if you did the Bill Russell thing, where you retire, the Michael Jordan thing, where you just retire a number across the league, that kind of thing, or like the Jackie Robinson, in baseball, whatever it might be. Obviously he's a candidate for that, but his legacy with the NBA is different than his legacy with the Lakers. So we can jump straight into this one, because I think this is, to me, this is more interesting than both number and statue. So I'm happy to kind of start.
Well, I think it's actually, they're all interesting questions, but I think it's, in certain respects, the jumping off point, just like the idea of, is this merited in the first place?
As a Laker.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I was thinking about this in terms of, what LeBron's achievements with the Lakers, and also compared to other people who've had their numbers retired, or in the case of Pau Gasol, is having his jersey retired. I want to make it clear from the beginning, I have no issue with Jeanie deciding to do this at all. LeBron was the focal point of a championship team. He was instrumental in helping shepherd the organization through Kobe's passing, and that was a really big deal. He broke the all-time scoring record that was held by another Laker in a Laker uniform.
Yeah.
He's LeBron James. The Lakers take care of stars. There is, to be honest, I think a certain degree of politics that goes along with this. Hell, he's going to own a team one day. So Jeanie's already laying down the groundwork for eventually working with another
owners meetings. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Already getting on the good side of this. And by the way, sharp move by Jeanie. But what is interesting about this is, by Laker standards for jersey retirements, I have no issue with LeBron, and I'd say he's met the criteria, but he's on the low end of the criteria, which is amazing.
It is more...
He's on the low end.
It's more Wilt than it is Pau or Magic, or obviously
Magic
or but you understand what I'm getting at. If you're sliding scale, because Wilt, who put up some good numbers with the Lakers, it wasn't like he was a slacker in any way, shape, or form, but most of his pure dominance as an NBA player came not as a Laker. It was not when he was with the franchise. But he still put up good enough numbers, and he won a title in a Laker uniform, and
a lot of winning. Period.
Did a lot of winning. There was a lot of winning, but over his 5 seasons. I couldn't remember if it was 4, 5, or 6, but it was 5 seasons in LA. And all but one of them, he played in either 81 or 82 games. The guy was, a monster in that regard. Averaged in LA 17.5 points and 19 rebounds and all this stuff. But in 6 seasons with the Warriors, he averaged 41.5 points and 25 rebounds. And then in Philadelphia, that was, basically before he got here, he was like a 27 and a 28 or 29 and 23 guy. He was prolific. And that's more like LeBron. It'll be interesting to see, and maybe we'll get to this after the break. The statue question is kind of related to the legacy thing. You got to earn the jersey retirement. I agree with you. He's LeBron James. He won a title here. He's I think, the best player of all time. If he's not, he's second. If he's not second, he's no worse than third. If you go Jordan, I would assume Kareem for most people, and then LeBron. He's at worst third. third best player in league history wears a Lakers jersey for at least 6 seasons, wins a title, you get your number retired. But the statue question, Andy, is related to Lakers' specific legacy. So let's talk about that next.
Locked On Lakers is brought to you by FanDuel, and you can take your first swing at betting MLB on FanDuel and get 10 times your first bet amount in bonus bets up to $200. Again, $200 in bonus bets. Just bet $20 and you will land $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. You can bet on everything from the money line to the over-under to whoever you think will hit the first home run in a game. And if you are looking ahead, FanDuel has odds on the MVP, Cy Young, the World Series winners, and for Laker fans who also love the Dodgers, Freddie Freeman, Mookie Betts, Clayton Kershaw, and the team itself, respectively, among the leaders in those categories. It's all on an app. It's safe, secure, really easy to use. And when you win, you get paid instantly. There's no waiting. So there's no better place to bet on MLB than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So sign up today. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com/LockedOn. FanDuel, the official partner of Major League Baseball.
All right, so everybody knows, I don't think most people would disagree with the idea that LeBron gets his jersey retired, but the statue question is really, I think, the legacy question. Like, what is the feeling about LeBron's tenure in LA? Because on the one hand, it hasn't been a disaster. They won a title. They went to the Western Conference Finals last year. Like, those are a couple good, but it's been sort of disappointing in other ways as well. LeBron has played very well when he's played, but hasn't played enough, I think, to really fulfill it. But he's also had those connecting moments, like you mentioned. I think he really kind of became a Laker post Kobe.
Yes.
Way, like you talked about that, the kind of the way he led helped lead the organization through that. Would you say that LeBron James is statue worthy now? And if the answer is yes, why? But if the answer is no, what would it take?
No, I don't think he's statue worthy. And just to make sure it's clear to people, there's no reports or anything like that of a statue in the works.
No,
it's just,
and it wasn't part of the interview either. This is just us doing the next step.
Right. These are the sort of the next logical steps, along with, would you retire 6? Would you retire 23? Would you retire both? The answer to both is no.
No.
If for no other reason, then you will piss off Kobe fans and a lot of Laker fans.
You get one, I think LeBron gets a number.
Right. I think LeBron would even recognize don't do both. That's a bad idea.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think for what it's worth, the obvious one is 23 because that's the one he won a championship with. Yep. And the number's been retired already for Bill Russell. He's Bill Russell.
If he wins another one too, because he's switching back, it's going to be in 23 again.
Right. But also, you don't want to seem like you are essentially unretiring Bill Russell's number so you can retire it for yourself, given everything Bill Russell has meant to both the game and like humanity.
Right. Especially after you go ahead and you change your number, you say, because it's like you want to leave that for Russell.
Right.
So I don't see it being an issue.
Right. Exactly. Like maybe someday 23 will be retired league-wide, but I doubt it will be before LeBron's jersey is retired. 23 is the obvious answer. No, LeBron has not been, in my opinion, worthy of a statue in terms of what he's done, and that's not shade. The idea that the qualifications for a statue are high, they ought to be. Like, even though it might seem easy for the Lakers, well, there's like for people who've not been outside the arena because you don't live in Los Angeles or you just never had the opportunity to go to a game, go to the building, whatever, you might think that it's not that hard just because it's like a freaking museum out there. But that's more just because there have been so many great Lakers, like truly great Lakers. Like Magic has a statue. Kareem has a statue. Shaq has a statue. I believe West has a statue. Kobe will undoubtedly have.
Kobe's getting one. Yes.
A statue. And Chick Hearn has a statue.
I gotta say, I don't understand the Eldon Campbell statue, but he was very popular.
Yes. So it might feel like it becomes obligatory. Like if you get your number retired, you also get a statue. The truth is
You get a statue, and you get a statue.
I don't think LeBron has done enough. Would a second championship as the focal point be enough? You're getting there. If nothing else, you are getting much closer.
If 3 does the trick.
Well, at that point, you're likely talking about a back-to-back championship.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
So
yeah, exactly.
At that point, sure. I also think too, in certain respects, it will take more from LeBron just to truly ingratiate himself towards the Laker fan base that way. In certain ways that aren't even LeBron's fault. It's just the way things have been. He's always been seen as something of a mercenary with the team, even though, to be fair to LeBron, I think he has been exceptionally professional with the organization. I think he cares about winning. But like we've talked about before, the basketball was not the only reason he came to LA by a long shot, and that's fine. But I think it's led to that still a bit of a disconnect when it comes to Laker fans and LeBron.
Yeah. It's been better than I thought it would be, especially I think when you consider it hasn't worked quite as well. I think more of the wrath goes towards AD than it does LeBron. Like who, by the way, will also at some point have his jersey retired by the Lakers. No statue yet, though. Would you agree with that, though? I mean, like, I know we talked about, especially, on the radio when we were doing all those shows like that. One of my major questions and things that I was really curious about was how quickly LeBron would be embraced. Would he really be embraced by Lakers fans because it was coming so late in his career? There was already so much of that sort of back history between him and Kobe fans, not so much him and Kobe, but him and Kobe fans. The idea that LeBron was sort of anointed too quickly, that he took shine away from Kobe that Kobe deserved. Again, I think the tragic circumstances changed the context of this conversation in ways that nobody ever would have predicted or wanted. But do you agree with me that I feel like LeBron actually has made better inroads with Lakers fans than I would have thought when he got here, even while thinking they might win more over the last 5 seasons than they have.
Well, I mean, those circumstances with Kobe's death obviously created, an emotional connection or something that I think Laker fans do remember with LeBron, and they're grateful towards him for that. It also, in a certain backhanded way, helps that LeBron, I think, got off to such a bad start in terms of his relationship with Laker fans, because that first season with the team, to be honest, he was, I think, a pretty bad leader. It was the only season LeBron's been with the team that I thought his leadership honestly was bad. He was, passive aggressively trying to get everyone on the team traded for Anthony Davis in ways that were pretty callous towards, Brandon Ingram and Lonzo and these guys who had to deal with it. Even someone like Rajon Rondo admitted that trade deadline was difficult for him. And he's certainly someone who's been through a lot at that point of his career. He seemed kind of aloof and disconnected from the team that first season. Yeah. Since then, I think LeBron has been a terrific leader for this organization. I think it's something fans noticed. Even, has there been, the back and forth at times between what he's wanted, what management's wanted, the Russell Westbrook of it all? Sure, but
never happened with previous stars in this town.
Exactly.
No, I can't think of a single time where that happened.
And look, have there been times where, they've been his guys when it's great? I don't know whose guys they are when it's not. Fine. But bottom line is, I think LeBron's been a pretty good steward for this organization for the majority of the time he's been here. That will help build a relationship between him and fans. But I don't think it's never going to feel the way it did with like Kobe or Magic or Kareem or Worthy or even like Powell, because so much of LeBron's achievements and perception had been built somewhere else.
Yeah, I agree. Really curious what you guys think about this. Leave us comments at Cam Brothers on Twitter. Leave us comments. Maybe we'll put up a poll. We'll try to put up a poll. Like, it's particularly about this statue question, and then why? Because, like we said, the statue question isn't so much about statue. It's about like what are the qualifications as a Laker to do it. Like, I'd be surprised if there was a lot of pushback on LeBron gets his jersey retired. LeBron. A lot of pushback, not some, but a lot. Maybe I could be wrong. Again, leave it all in the comments. But this statue question is really a bigger picture thing. We'd love to get your comments and revisit this over the course of the week. Next, though, Andy, I want to talk about Cam Reddish because this scouting report you did was awesome and left me with all kinds of thoughts and questions that I want to react with you about on a guy who could become, I think, a little more important than people think. So that's next. Okay, so there's the kind of running belief, and I don't think it's necessarily wrong, but I don't think it's foolproof, is that Reddish is sort of an all upside play with no real downside if he doesn't perform. I think that's sort of the standard narrative, but I think that is based on a few things. I think it's based on relative good health to where you are not reliant on Reddish to come in and give you minutes. I think it is increasingly relying on the play of Max Christie to kind of fill in a role there and give you rotation minutes. And so I do think it could matter a little bit more than maybe we've talked about that Reddish pan out, because you also have kind of a flyer in Jackson Hayes, and who knows what else is going to happen with the rest of the roster and all of that. When I love to get your reaction talking to the three guys about Reddish and what you were left with. Again, Andy scouting report from Monday talked to all three Locked On hosts from the three cities where Reddish has played. There were similarities and differences in each of those interviews. But what was your big takeaway having talked directly to all three of those guys?
The two things that jumped out at me the most, one, because it was a genuine surprise, the other because I just found it interesting and also maybe potentially instructive in terms of Reddish's career so far, but also what needs to change in order for it to work with the Lakers. First, the surprise, the consensus that he's not an explosive athlete by NBA standards and not like this just super high-end athlete. That was surprising to me. And a few people pointed out in the comment section, maybe it's a byproduct of some injuries he's had. Maybe not. I honestly don't know. But it was surprising because he looks the part of somebody that is.
He's very smooth. But they also talk about his size. Like, he's sort of plays a little bigger than you think, but right, not as explosively as you think.
But like, he is out of central casting when it looks like the guy who would be incredible athlete. And the other thing that jumped out at me was the consensus that he doesn't have the self-awareness to realize that his career path is likely that of a role player. You know, he can maybe be a very high-end role player, but a role player nonetheless. And he hasn't wrapped his arms around that, much less actually hone the skills necessary to succeed in that role. And it reminded me, this is in part because, again, like Reddish, in the eyes of all three guys that I talked to from Locked On Hawks, Locked On Knicks, Locked On Blazers, that he sees himself as more of a star. You know, the guy that he was touted, you know, out of Duke heading into the league. And it reminded me a bit of years ago when we covered the Kobe Powell teams, Jordan Farmar. And, you know, this was something I wrote about, I talked about on air, stuff like that. In my opinion, Farmar thought he was better than he was. But to be fair to Jordan Farmar, he felt that part of his problems were that Phil Jackson's system didn't play to his strengths. And he was 100% correct about that. Like, Farmar was justified in feeling like he was not in a setup that really allowed him to shine, even though I still think he thought he was better than he actually was. You know, when talking with Alex Wolf from Locked On Knicks, he mentioned how Tom Thibodeau seemed to decide pretty early, Reddish is not my guy. Reminded me a bit of just Farmar and just the idea of like Reddish may be overinflating himself, but it doesn't mean that he's wrong, that he hasn't been put in the right opportunity.
That was my big thing is like, there's this because of the sort of the aesthetics and the place he was drafted, and all three guys talked about, like, it's not that he's never been good. It's not that he never had stretches with Atlanta or New York or Portland where he was, but they were just never sustained. It was, oh my God, it's there. And then it just sort of goes away. And it's like, oh, we look at this guy. And then the more you see him, oh, we're not going to play him as much. And in Portland, I thought it was really interesting that, like, I thought that comment from Mike Richmond that, like, he didn't even stand out while they were playing all the bad players. Like, he could, like, somebody's got to be the star of that team, and it wasn't him. And it wasn't even like it wasn't him in a way that you would almost want it to be, where he's not scoring 18, 20, 25 points a game, but he's doing 10 other things that help your team win. He just didn't stand out. There's this concept with Reddish that, like, you just want to mold him into this thing that you want him to be. If he would just do X, Y, or Z, or if we could just make him do this, and it hasn't worked out. The one thing, and that's part of the reason I've been so skeptical about why this obsession with Cam Reddish in LA. The one thing that is different about the Lakers than anywhere else that he's been is context and structure. He comes here with no chance of being a star. There is a 0% chance Cam Reddish becomes a star with the Lakers. Not going to happen. He comes here with better structure and better leadership than he's had anywhere else, into a place where, I mean, they were talked about with Tibbs and winning and whatever in New York, but they weren't there yet. And, you know, that wasn't yet a winning culture.
Atlanta was chaotic while he was there.
Yes, and Portland was tanking. So this is not that. Like, this is, you show up, you do what we ask you to do in the way that we ask you to do it, or we'll just have somebody else do it. Like, this is how you get on the floor. He's never had that. He might react really well to it. It might be liberating. It might be sort of freeing to not have to become Cam Reddish, 10th pick. You know, I was reminded that, you know, when you were talking with you know, the Hawks host, you know, like, there's those moments where you're like, oh, we won the Luka trade. Well, maybe we didn't. Like, you forget, like, that's part of, like, he leaves all that baggage behind.
It's a lot like Rui with the Lakers.
That's the hope. I am still very skeptical, because Rui, while there was some disappointment in Washington, had always kind of played a supporting role, like in his. I don't think Hachimura came to LA thinking, like, or has spent his first few years being like, finally, this is going to be my chance. So, like, I am a star and I need to be treated like a star. I could be wrong. I wonder if Reddish can become the player mentally and sort of self-aware, like you use the word self-awareness. Like, that's the part that is going to have to change first and foremost before he even has a shot to succeed, and whether or not the other skills can follow.
I mean, he's in a situation right now where he has to be thinking about performance for his next contract, but he has to make sure that he's not performing in a way that feels like he's gunning for money, like literally and figuratively, because that will likely just keep him nailed to the bench. But if he finds ways to succeed in a role that's laid out for him, and maybe it's one that plays to his strengths, you know, Malik Monk managed to find that in his prove it year with the Lakers. You know, he happened to be asked to do the things that he does well.
He was given a really good opportunity, and
right,
Reddish may not have as much of an opportunity.
But, you know, at the same time, like, Malik, I think, worked harder defensively than he ever had. Even if he was not a great defender, I think Malik embraced the idea of, I need to work at it more. He I think, developed some as a passer over the course of that season. Again, not brilliant, but better. You know, I mean, I think Troy Brown managed to do enough last season where he got a bit of a bump, you know, with Minnesota. He got paid a little bit more. I think it's because he found a lane, stayed in it, while occasionally, you know, showing off some good passing, occasionally putting the ball on the floor a little bit, but not operating outside of what you're supposed to do.
There's actually a lot more I want to talk about. Like Alex Wolf, when, you know, from Locked On Knicks, had some interesting stuff to say about what you were just talking about with Reddish, and how young players feel like this is the thing, like, this is my moment, my playing time, my role is inconsistent. How am I going to show that I belong? By trying to score. I want to keep talking about this a little more tomorrow. Hopefully, we have some reaction to this question of LeBron and the statue. The NBA has talked about Dame Lillard with a very interesting memo to everyone that we can unpack. So there's still a lot to come for the course of the week, but I want to save the rest of this Cam Reddish conversation to when we can continue to kind of unpack it a little more, because it's relevant, I think, to the Lakers in a lot of different ways. So we'll save that for Tuesday. We'll get your reaction to some other things. Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where you can go to see the show, hang out with 20,000 other subscribers to the channel. The comment section is always hopping. You guys talking to us, talking to each other. So we appreciate all of the support there. Thank you to Andy for doing all the for lining up so many great guests while I was out of town. We'll try to return the favor in a week or so. And we'll have lots more great guests for you. Please do leave us comments. Who else do you want to see on the show? We'll go try to get them for you. We'll see everybody on Wednesday.